Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishabhai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and thy blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. So I don't think there's any real reason to ask for comments or questions from last week. There's just the three of us here, or four of us. But if there is anything, all right, well, welcome to our Tuesday evening reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Our beloved reader is Aima Naidu, and we are well along in the introduction. She will tell us where we are, and so we'll just go right on ahead.
Good evening and namaste, everybody. And we are on page 45 on PDF, and I believe -7 would be the regular book page number. And we finished the ego of the master, and now we're moving on to summary of the master's spiritual experiences. That's where I'm going to be starting.
Okay.
Summary of the master's spiritual experiences. We have now come to the end of Sri Ramakrishna's sadhana, the period of his spiritual discipline. As a result of his supersensuous experiences, he reached certain conclusions regarding himself and spirituality in general. His conclusions about himself may be summarized as follows. First, he was an incarnation of God, a specially commissioned person whose spiritual experiences were for the benefit of humanity. Whereas it takes an ordinary man a whole life struggle to realize one or two faces of God, he had in a few years realized God in all his faces. Second, he knew that he had always been a free soul, that the various disciplines through which he had passed were really not necessary for his own liberation, but were solely for the benefit of others. Thus, the terms liberation and bondage were not applicable to him. As long as there are beings who consider themselves bound, God must come down to earth as an incarnation to free them from bondage, just as a magistrate must visit any part of his district in which there is trouble. Third, he came to foresee the time of his death. His words with respect to this matter were literally fulfilled. That is the end of summary of the master's spiritual experiences. Brother Shankara, any comments, questions?
Well, just what a remarkably short summary
it is.
of such a long period of sadhana. But the conclusions that the Swami mentions, Nikhilananda mentions, of course, are all correct. Of course they would be, but there's really nothing much more to say other than we'll hear as we read on through the gospel.
Mhm.
Many more of the Master's spiritual experiences and why he had them and what their significance is to us and so on. Because he explains that to others, or others explain it, and he ratifies that explanation. So, anything else before we go on? All right, dear, please read on.
Next subheading is about spirituality in general. The following were his conclusions. First, he was firmly convinced that all religions are true, that every doctrinal system represents a path to God. He had followed all the main paths, and all had led him to the same goal. He was the first religious prophet recorded in history to preach the harmony of religions. Second, the three great systems of thought known as dualism, qualified non-dualism, and absolute non-dualism, Dvaita, Vasishtadvaita, and Advaita, he perceived to represent three stages in man's progress toward the ultimate reality. They were not contradictory, but complementary and suited to different temperaments. For the ordinary man with strong attachment to the senses, a dualistic form of religion prescribing a certain amount of material support, such as music and other symbols, is useful. A man of God realization transcends the idea of worldly duties, but the ordinary mortal must perform his duties, striving to be unattached and to surrender the results to God. The mind can comprehend and describe the range of thought and experience up to the Visishtadvaita and no further. The Advaita, the last word in spiritual experience, is something to be felt in samadhi, for it transcends mind and speech. From the highest standpoint, the absolute and its manifestation are equally real. The Lord's name, his abode.
Okay, I found this on the web.
Hold on.
From the highest price.
1 second, Brother Shankara. Something is interfering in my reading here.
It seems to be gone now.
Yeah, it's gone now. Yeah, suddenly it popped in.
I think it was the person who had the iPhone, because they signed off and they're gone now.
I don't know why it's doing on iPad. Suddenly something pops up and talks. I am not understanding how to get rid of this. So let me.
You didn't need to. It was somebody who had their iPhone and something started talking on their iPhone. It wasn't anything having to do with you, dear.
Really?
Because as soon as they signed off, I noticed that when they signed off, that person signed off, that voice immediately stopped.
Okay.
Yes, that was me. I'm sorry, something
that's okay.
from my iPhone. So I'm back now. So,
No problem.
sorry
Okay.
for the interruption.
No problem. The Advaita, the last word in spiritual experience, is something to be felt in samadhi, for it transcends mind and speech. From the highest standpoint, the absolute and its manifestation are equally real. The Lord's name, his abode, and the Lord himself are of the same spiritual essence. Everything is spirit, the difference being only in form. Third, Sri Ramakrishna realized the wish of the Divine Mother that through him she should found a new order consisting of those who would uphold the universal doctrines illustrated in his life. Fourth, his spiritual insight told him that those who were having their last birth on the mortal plane of existence and those who had sincerely called on the Lord even once in their lives must come to him.
Please repeat that, dear, because
Sure.
this is so important to those of us
Mhm.
who are following this path.
Can
that
I
has
read
to do with-
all of them, Brother Shankara, or the fourth one only?
Just read the fourth one, dear.
Okay. Fourth, his spiritual insight told him that those who were having their last birth on the mortal plane of existence and those who had sincerely called on the Lord even once in their lives must come to him.
So there it is.
Mhm.
This is the eternal teacher making herself
Yes.
completely available to us if we've called on the Lord sincerely even once in our lives. What a stupendous promise. Is there any comment or question from anyone? Any need for clarification of any of that?
I believe in that, Brother Shankara. That's my comment. Truly believe in this.
Very good.
Truly believe in
Yes, if we can't believe Sri Ramakrishna, who can we believe? So, and this is what the gurus tell us when we take initiation. This now guarantees that at your death, Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, will come for you. And this will be the end of it. This is the end of it. Now, you may choose to return. It isn't as if you're compelled to no longer take birth, but you will no longer be compelled to take birth. If you choose to return to serve, and surely when we look at the Ramakrishna Order Swamis, these and the Pravrajikas, the nuns, surely these people must have chosen to accept the Master's invitation to come back and serve as part of his ongoing service to mankind. So anything else from anyone?
Yes, brother, I have a question of a couple of paragraphs up.
Mhm.
Can you help me understand what qualified non-dualism is? That's always been hard for me to wrap my head around.
Qualified non-dualism says that both the experience of your life and the experience that you would have in Savikalpa Samadhi are one and the same. They are spirit and spirit alone. Dualism says, I am this and over there is that. Qualified non-dualism says, no, I contain it all. It is all contained within me. The contrast is with Advaita, absolute non-dualism, which says there is no material reality at all. There's no, if there is, I reject it entirely, neti neti. So qualified non-dualism says I accept both. I accept both the time, space, and causation, and that which I experience in Savikalpa Samadhi, which is what we'll discuss a bit this coming Sunday. The Savikalpa Samadhi is the transformative experience, so that then there is no more question or doubt or fear. But it is qualified non-dualism is the acceptance of both the material world and all of its activities, and karma yoga is very much Sri Krishna's karma yoga, as described in the Gita, is very much qualified non-dualism, if that makes any sense. Does that get it, Jeff?
It kind of helps. The thing that I've been thinking about lately is in Advaita, it's very, the usual term is illusion, that the world is illusion and has no reality. I get the fact that it has no reality in terms of permanence, that everything in time, space, and causation is temporary, but it's very real to us while we are stuck in this dream, and that's kind of how.
Well, that's why there is qualified non-dualism. It accepts your experience of time, space, and causation, and says it's not a dream.
Well, instead of using the word illusion, what makes sense to me is that this world is God in manifestation, or God taking on the appearance of this.
Yes, that's what was said a bit ago in one of the paragraphs, that Sri Ramakrishna saw that he himself had become everything. And he said that in as many words. And we'll read it in the gospel. I am becoming everything.
Can I say something, Shankaraji?
Shankara?
Yes, Bala.
Oh, okay. See, on the if you read a little bit further, it says dualism, qualified non-dualism, and absolute non-dualism. Again, he defines as Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Advaita. So when Jeff is saying this is all delusional, but you need a magician for the magic. So in order to have the delusion, you have to have an underlying reality, that is Turiya.
Very good.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
For me, I think sometimes the confusion is somewhat relieved when I think of it neither as illusion or delusion, but as projection, and use the theater analogy that as an audience, when I'm sitting and watching, and if the performance is so good and I really kind of get into the characters, then it seems so real, even though I know that it's just a play.
Very good. This is the same concept that Bala just spoke of. That there is the magic and the magician, and there's the play, and then there's the playwright. So, and the actors in the play. All of this, this is why we so badly need a guru, because our guru can tell us, ignore all these secondary details and definitions and categories. Just do this, and you will come to understand. Sri Ramakrishna said, all these contradictions and paradoxes resolve themselves when you come into the neighborhood of God. And you do this by practicing spiritual disciplines, particularly those that are given to you by your guru. And it's not something that happens overnight, but it does happen.
That's right.
I think you just took what I was going to say as well. I hear different people getting trapped on the teachings of this world is illusory or this world is real. When Ramakrishna here is teaching that those are stages of understanding, the ultimate being Advaita there. I heard a
Yes,
senior Swami recently say that only an enlightened person can know in what sense the world is real. And
exactly.
that was interesting. I've been meditating on that recently.
Yes, and for the rest of us, it's something of the mind and the intellect. Anything else?
When I was talking to the Swami the other day, he just said it's all mind. End of statement. And I was good with that. Works for me.
Well, that's all we can know, as long as it's all we know. So that's what he meant, of course. And but once one achieves the purified mind, which is illumination, then real, as Daniel just pointed out, real takes on a whole different meaning for you. These categorical definitions and so on are no doubt important, but they can be traps for us if we try too hard to reason around them. Anything else from anyone?
Actually, there is one story where Rama asks Anjaneya, what do you think of me? Anjaneya's answer is, as long as I'm in this body, I think we are separate, Dvaita. And as long as I'm in the subtle body, I think we are part, that is Vishishtadvaita or the so-called, qualified non-dualism. And when I transcend these planes, it is you and I are one.
Yes, I am you and you are me. Now, who is this that this story is told of?
Rama asked Anjaneya.
Who is this second person?
Hanuman.
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 Oh, I didn't recognize that other name.
Anjaneya.
I'm sorry. Yes, Hanuman.
Hanuman.
All right. So yes, indeed, this is what he asked him. And Sri Ramakrishna tells that story in the Gospel.
Yes.
He does.
Anything else? All right.
Yeah. During this period, Sri Ramakrishna suffered several bereavements. The first was the death of a nephew named Akshay. After the young man's death, Sri Ramakrishna said, Akshay died before my very eyes, but it did not affect me in the least. I stood by and watched a man die. It was like a sword being drawn from its scabbard. I enjoyed the scene and laughed and sang and danced over it. They removed the body and cremated it. But the next day, as I stood there, pointing to the southeast veranda of his room, I felt a racking pain for the loss of Akshay, as if somebody were squeezing my heart like a wet towel. I wondered at it and thought that the mother was teaching me a lesson. I was not much concerned even with my own body, much less with a relative. But if such was my pain at the loss of a nephew, how much more must be the grief of the householders at the loss of their near and dear ones. In 1871, Mathur died, and some 5 years later, Sambhu Malik, who after Madhur's passing away, had taken care of the master's comfort. In 1873, died his elder brother Rameshwar, and in 1876, his beloved mother. These bereavements left their imprint on the tender human heart of Sri Ramakrishna, albeit he had realized the immortality of the soul and the illusoriness of birth and death. In March 1875, about a year before the death of his mother, the master met Keshav Chandra Sen. The meeting was a momentous event for both Sri Ramakrishna and Keshav. Here, the master, for the first time, came into actual contact with a worthy representative of modern India. That's the end of this subheading, which is spirituality in general. The following were his conclusions about spirituality.
Mhm.
Any questions, comments from the panel or you, Brother Shankar?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. You want
Is
me
there anything from anyone else about anything that we've read or has been said?
to- Okay.
Okay, please read on.
The only thing I have,
Sure.
I'm thinking when when his nephew died, I know he is an avatar. That's why we don't understand how they do and how they, act. So, but he was dancing and all those things. We won't do that. But I guess that is the difference between an avatar and our.
But shortly afterwards,
He felt
he
it.
said he had a racking pain, as if his heart was being squeezed like a wet towel. And he said that it was the mother teaching him the lesson. This is what others experience. Just because you can transcend it, if you're going to serve humanity, you have to understand them. And there were many of these kinds of lessons that came along for Sri Ramakrishna about the relationship of the ordinary human being to the world and to spirituality. And so when he felt this pain for the loss of Akshay, and he felt a strong sense of loss when Mathur Babu left and Rameshwar, but especially his mother. Oh, he really felt it when his mother left. And it was because now, by that point, he was fully attuned to how the human heart, not the avatar's heart. The avatar's heart is beyond our grasp, beyond our understanding, but how the human heart responds to the loss of a near and dear one, as it was just said in the text. So we need to have the avatar understand us. We need to have the understand. Otherwise, how can they be our refuge? They cannot be our refuge if they don't understand why we need their embrace, their refuge. So this is why it says in breaker of this world's chain that Sri Ramakrishna is indeed the refuge.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
So in our lives, when we lose near and dear ones, obviously in the immediate period, we shed tears, we miss and we are sad. But as time passes by, they say time is the healer, and we come to accept and not, I mean, we still miss, but we can accept it better. So what's the difference between this human sort of experience and the transcendence of the realized beings in the same,
Well,
the depth?
how would I possibly know, dear? We certainly we're not going to understand an avatar. And the experience of a realized soul, the saints, it's said that we don't understand the behavior of the saints any more than we understand the behavior of the avatars. There's just no way for me to know. All we can do is have a loving acceptance of ourselves and a self-love and self-forgiveness for all of our distractions. We're distracted because we're ignorant. If we weren't ignorant, we would not be distracted. But we are ignorant, and so we do have distractions. And of course, one of the strongest, there are 5, that are said to be the most powerful. One of them is the loss of a loved one. This is a huge, it leaves a hole. It leaves an actual hole in our hearts, so to speak. And so it's a long time before that hole heals, as you said. And we must be patient with ourselves, and we must emphatically be patient with others. We must not be impatient with others and judge them for what we perceive to be their faults. Mother said, if you want peace of mind, my child, do not find fault with others. If you must find fault with yourself. But even that she recommended against. Does that get it, Soya?
Yes, Brother Shankara. Thank you.
It's always good to let me know whether that was satisfactory or not. Otherwise, I'm likely to natter on. Anything else from anyone?
That last bit reminded me of a verse in the New Testament in reference to Jesus Christ, another avatar, where it's actually Hebrews 2:17 that said, therefore he had to become like his brothers and sisters in every respect, so that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God.
Amen. There it
Like
is. Please say
parallel.
that again, Daniel. That's beautiful.
Therefore he had to become like his brothers and sisters in every respect, so that he might be a merciful, faithful high priest in the service of God.
There it is. Boy, howdy. Of course, these things were said of Jesus because he was indeed an incarnation, an avatar. And all of these things that he was. And I mean, if you want to know what an avatar is, if you really want to understand as best you can what an avatar is, read Swami Vivekananda's talk given in Pasadena in January of 1900, titled Christ the Messenger. It's a very short little book. It's just an hour's talk by the Swami. But it is so full of wisdom and understanding about what it is, not just Christ, but all the avatars, all the incarnations. Why do they come? What do they do? What must they become? Just as Daniel pointed out. And the fact that they suffer, as Holy Mother said, when the divine being takes human form, they take on all of the pluses and minuses of being human. They have to overcome the ignorance. This is why Jesus said, I have overcome the world. He had his spiritual sadhana as well, his spiritual journey. We don't know much about it. 40 days in the wilderness doesn't say much. But Swami Vivekananda said a great deal in that talk, Christ the Messenger. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears, please read on.
Your brother Shankara. Next subheading is Brahmo Samaj. Keshav was the leader of the Brahmo Samaj, one of the two great movements that, during the latter part of the 19th century, played an important part in shaping the course of the Renaissance of India. The founder of the Brahmo movement had been the great Raja Ram Mohan Rai, 1774 to 1833. Though born in an Orthodox Brahmin family, Ram Mohan Rai had shown great sympathy for Islam and Christianity. He had gone to Tibet in search of the Buddhist mysteries. He had extracted from Christianity its ethical system, but had rejected the divinity of Christ as he had denied the Hindu incarnations. The religion of Islam influenced him to a great extent in the formulation of his monotheistic doctrines. But he always went back to the Vedas for his spiritual inspiration. The Brahmo Samaj, which he founded in 1828, was dedicated to the worship and adoration of the eternal, the unsearchable, the immutable being, who is the author and preserver of the universe. The Samaj was open to all without distinction of color, creed, caste, nation, or religion. The real organizer of the Samaj was Devendranath Tagore, 1817 to 1905, the father of the poet Rabindranath. His physical and spiritual beauty, aristocratic aloofness, penetrating intellect, and poetic sensibility made him the foremost leader of the educated Bengalis. These addressed him by the respectful epithet of Maharshi, the great seer. The Maharshi was a Sanskrit scholar and, unlike Rajaram Mohan Rai, drew his inspiration entirely from the Upanishads. He was an implacable enemy of image worship and also fought to stop the infiltration of Christian ideas into the Samaj. He gave the movement its faith and ritual. Under his influence, the Brahmo Samaj professed one self-existent supreme being who had created the universe out of nothing, the God of truth, infinite wisdom, goodness, and power, the eternal and omnipotent, the one without a second. Man should love him and do his will, believe in him and worship him, and thus merit salvation in the world to come. By far, the ablest leader of the Brahmo movement was Keshav Chandra Sen. Unlike Rajaram Mohan Rai and Devendranath Tagore, Keshav was born of a middle-class Bengali family and had been brought up in an English school. He did not know Sanskrit and very soon broke away from the popular Hindu religion. Even at an early age, he came under the spell of Christ and professed to have experienced the special favor of John the Baptist, Christ, and St. Paul. When he strove to introduce Christ to the Brahmo Samaj,
Hold on just one moment.
sure.
When he said these things,
Yes,
it's important for us to understand that Sri Ramakrishna believed him. Sri Ramakrishna had complete confidence in Keshav. He didn't question the things that Keshav said. He said that Keshav was a prisoner of limitation, and so opened up a whole new vista, as we'll hear. That Sri Ramakrishna's relationship with Keshav opened up a whole new vista of spirituality for Keshav. But it wasn't because there was anything lacking in what he was doing. It was just simply limited. There was more to be known, more to be manifested. And so this was the relationship of Sri Ramakrishna and Keshav. But it's important for when we hear that Keshav professed that he had had this special favor of John the Baptist, Christ, and St. Paul. This is quite a remarkable statement to make. And yet Sri Ramakrishna did not question it, did not say, you're self-deluded. Anything else from anyone about any of that? Okay, dear, please read on.
sure. When he strove to introduce Christ to the Brahmo Samaj, a rupture became inevitable with Devendranath. In 1868, Keshav broke with the older leader and founded the Brahmo Samaj of India. Devendra retaining leadership of the first Brahmo Samaj, now called the Adi Samaj. Keshav possessed a complex nature. When passing through a great moral crisis, he spent much of his time in solitude and felt that he heard the voice of God. When a devotional form of worship was introduced into the Brahmo Samaj, he spent hours in singing kirtan with his followers. He visited England in 1870 and impressed the English people with his musical voice, his simple English, and his spiritual fervor. He was entertained by Queen Victoria. Returning to India, he founded centers of the Brahmo Samaj in various parts of the country.
Now, this business about how he was treated in England. It was very unusual for a teacher of his kind to go to England in those days. I mean, after all, England was the conqueror, the oppressor. But Keshav went, and instead of dealing with them in that way, was just simple-hearted and straightforward. And so he was introduced to and entertained by, as it was said, by Queen Victoria. This made him quite famous when he returned to India. The fact that he was honored in this way by the British made him quite famous and really gave him momentum for what he was trying to do with the Brahmo Samaj of India. Any other comments from anybody else's knowledge about that business? All right, very good. I just didn't want to let it go by.
Thank you.
Keshav had been dealt, well, first of all, that's how he dealt with the British, very simple and straightforwardly, and didn't deal with them as oppressors. And so, as we might expect, karmically, what was returned to him? He was accepted. and even honored in the highest circles. So quite remarkable. Can't talk now, I'm in class.
Returning to India, he founded centers of the Brahmo Samaj in various parts of the country. Not unlike a professor of comparative religion in a European university, he began to discover about the time of his first contact with Sri Ramakrishna, the harmony of religions. He became sympathetic toward the Hindu gods and goddesses, explaining them in a liberal fashion. Further, he believed that he was called by God to dictate to the world God's newly revealed law, the new dispensation, the Nava Vidhan. In 1878, a schism divided Keshav Samaj. Some of his influential followers accused him of infringing the Brahmo principles by marrying his daughter to a wealthy man before she had attained the marriageable age approved by the Samaj. This group seceded and established the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, Keshav remaining the leader of the Navavidhan. Keshav now began to be drawn more and more toward the Christ ideal, though under the influence of Sri Ramakrishna, his devotion to the Divine Mother also deepened. His mental oscillation between Christ and the Divine Mother of Hinduism found no position of rest. In Bengal and some other parts of India, the Brahmo movement took the form of Unitarian Christianity, scoffed at Hindu rituals, and preached a crusade against image worship. Influenced by Western culture, it declared the supremacy of reason, advocated the ideals of the French Revolution, abolished the caste system among its own members, stood for the emancipation of women, agitated for the abolition of early marriage, sanctioned the remarriage of widows, and encouraged various educational and social reform movements.
Now, all of these were quite revolutionary
Yes.
ideas in Bengal at the time, in India at the time. As was said, he had established centers through many places in India. So these were what was being taught by his teachers in these various centers. And it was really quite revolutionary. And it's one of the reasons that Vivekananda was attracted and Raja Maharaj were attracted, because these were new revolutionary ideas, not just depending on the past. And so both Vivekananda and Narendranath Datta and Rakal Ghosh were members of the Brahmo Samaj. And at the time that Sri Ramakrishna came to know them, both were members and were close friends. Anything else?
Is this Shankaraji? Is the Sri Ramakrishna's harmony of religions is same thing as Unitarian Christianity?
No. Unitarian Christianity is Sri Ram, if you want to, it's without going too far down that road. Unitarian Christianity is the most. It's very hard to say what it is, because it keeps shifting around, but it doesn't attach itself to any particular doctrine, but says you can practice any doctrine. And so it's a little too fuzzy. Sri Ramakrishna's attitude was anything but fuzzy. And as Unitarianism is it's now Universalist Unitarian,
Mhm.
and they do espouse the harmony of religions, but it's, as I said, it's fuzzy.
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I explored Unitarianism at one point and was quite baffled by the fact that you never heard the word God in any talk or hymn that they sang or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't want to offend their atheist members.
Yes.
And I just couldn't quite get that through my head. And so I think it was Ronald Reagan's famous expression talking about California, there is no there.
Yes.
To me, in Unitarianism, there is no there.
Well, this is the difficulty. When you're trying to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. And so this is why I said it's so fuzzy. When they won't mention the word God because they don't want to offend their atheist members. That, just as you said, it just doesn't make any sense. So when you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. And
Well,
I think there might be
sort of,
a little confusion here. Unitarian at that point in time didn't refer to the modern iteration of Christian Universalism, of the Unitarian Universalists that we see today, the UU churches.
no,
It referred to a non-Trinitarian sect of Christianity that rejected the Godhead of three persons. But they were, according to the reading, they were very dogmatic about certain teachings.
Uh-huh. Well,
Very
thank you.
different than what we see today. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know anything about that. Thank you for clarifying that. And that certainly would not have been, that dogmatism about anything at all would not have suited Sri Ramakrishna. All right, we've got a few minutes left. Anything more from anyone, or shall we read on? All right, dear, please read on.
The immediate effect of the Brahma movement in Bengal was the checking of the proselytizing activities of the Christian missionaries. Did I say the word right, Brother Shankara? Proselytizing?
Yes.
Okay. It also raised Indian culture in the estimation of its English masters. But it was an intellectual and eclectic religious ferment born of the necessity of the time. Unlike Hinduism, it was not founded on the deep inner experiences of the sages and prophets. Its influence was confined to a comparatively few educated men and women of the country, and the vast masses of the Hindus remained outside it. It sounded monotonously only one of the notes in the rich gamut of the eternal religion of the Hindus. That's the end of the Brahma Samaj. Now we're moving into Arya Samaj.
Okay, now,
Sure.
Before we go on, there are good reasons for us to understand who Keshav Sen was. It's probably not an auspicious use of our time to try to understand all of the complexities of the Brahmo Samaj's teachings. Sri Ramakrishna was convinced that Keshab was doing something beneficial, and so he really took him under his wing. But what he was most interested in was that he was most interested in persuading, and he had succeeded, of course, in doing this, in persuading Keshab that image worship was perfectly fine, as a matter of fact, very necessary. And one of the images that he introduced him to was the Kali at Dakshineshwar. And this is where Keshab began to have and began to visit and bring his followers to visit the master at Dakshineshwar. And so this is so. Does that make sense to everyone? That it probably doesn't. It's not auspicious for us to go into in any detail, for us to concern ourselves in any detail with the teachings of the Brahmo Samaj. Okay.
Okay, I will move on to Arya Samaj. It's a small paragraph, Brother Shankara. We could finish in 3-4 minutes and then end it there.
Yes.
Then, okay, Arya Samaj, the other movement playing an important part in the 19th century religious revival of India was the Arya Samaj. The Brahmo Samaj, essentially a movement of compromise with the European culture, tacitly admitted the superiority of the West. But the founder of the Arya Samaj was a pugnacious Hindu sannyasi who accepted the challenge of Islam and Christianity and was resolved to combat all foreign influence in India. Swami Dayananda, 1824 to 1883, launched this movement in Bombay in 1875, and soon its influence was felt throughout Western India. The Swami was a great scholar of the Vedas, which he explained as being strictly monotheistic. He preached against the worship of images and reestablished the ancient Vedic sacrificial rites. According to him, the Vedas were the ultimate authority on religion, and he accepted every word of them as literally true. The Arya Samaj became a bulwark against the encroachments of Islam and Christianity, and its orthodox flavor appealed to many Hindu minds. It also assumed leadership in many movements of social reform. The caste system became a target of its attack. Women, it liberated from many of their social disabilities. The cause of education received from it is great impetus. It started agitation against early marriage and advocated the remarriage of Hindu widows. Its influence was strongest in the Punjab, the battleground of the Hindu and Islamic cultures. A new fighting attitude was introduced into the slumbering Hindu society. Unlike the Brahmo Samaj, the influence of the Arya Samaj was not confined to the intellectuals. It was a force that spread to the masses. It was a dogmatic movement, intolerant of those disagreed with its views, and it emphasized only one way, the Arya Samaj way, to the realization of truth. Sri Ramakrishna met Swami Dayananda when the latter visited Bengal. That's the end of the Arya Samaj, Brother Shankara. We are almost 1 minute to that.
Okay, well, we'll just leave it.
We'll leave it there.
Leave it there.
Okay.
And so is there anything at all from anyone before we close? Please, if there's anything at all, bring it forward.
Richard Rohr has this statement he likes to say often, that progress is made by including and transcending. And I just reading these paragraphs, I kind of marvel at Ramakrishna's ability to include these various beliefs and then transcend them without rejecting them. It's
And
really
and
phenomenal.
what is Richard Rohr's statement? I missed a word or two.
Include and transcend.
Include and transcend. Yes, that's exactly it. That's the, I guess, the primary message of his book, The Universal Christ. Accept and transcend. Thank you, Daniel. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amrutangamaya Abir Moiti. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless delusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward, secure in the knowledge that we are in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, 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 and thy blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. All right, dears. Until tomorrow night, for those of you who decide to join us, we will study the Gita with Swayam as our reader. So if there's nothing from anyone, we'll say good night.
Good night. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Good night, dears. And away we go.